Cameras ready?
This stuff is different.
Isn't it? I mean, we have to come all the way to California to find this?
Yeah, I know.
In 4, 3, 2.
Here we are in Los Angeles, California with Michael J. Fox. I have to tell you, I think this is extraordinary. I meet you for the first time. We are sitting in Los Angeles, California, talking about casualties of war, and I'm clutching a bottle of something called Clearly Canadian.
Yeah, right. Isn't that funny?
There's something wrong here,
I have
Michael.
it as well. Clearly Canadian.
Do you think we're overdoing it?
Yeah. Well, we Canadians tend to do that. You know, when you get out of. My wife, in fact, was saying that to me the other day, saying because she was talking to me about how I did some print interviews yesterday, and she said, "How did they go?" And I said they went fine. And she asked me what writers are there, and I said there were a few from Canada. And she said, "Well, how did you know they were from Canada?" And I said, "Well, because when you're from Canada and you meet another Canadian, you go, 'Hi, Calgary.'" And she said, "What is that about Canadians that they're all like, no matter where they are, like, you're Canadian? I'm Canadian too." She said, like, if two Americans were to meet in Edmonton, they wouldn't do the same thing. And I said, "Well, I don't know. We enjoy each other's company. What can I tell you?"
You're right. Also, there's, you know, to keep on this theme, I was trying to explain to Brian De Palma, not forgetting for a moment in front of whom I'm saying this. One sits in a movie theater and watches Casualties of War. And I said to him, everything I say to you, I say as a Canadian citizen, for whom the Vietnam War was something I learned about from young Americans who decided not to go there and ended up in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. Mm-hmm. Or you met Americans in Toronto who, upon coming home from Vietnam, chose not to be in America. Mm-hmm. And Brian De Palma maintains that Vietnam is the sore that will never heal. Mm-hmm. After your experience, do you believe that?
Oh, well, I absolutely do. I mean, you know, it actually reminds me of, and I hope I don't get too off it, and if I do, bring me back, but, you know, people have said to me, saw another Vietnam film, and they speak of it as if it were a genre of Vietnam, like a spaghetti western, a Vietnam film. The Vietnam films, the films that deal with Vietnam, are part of an incredibly painful process of re-examination on the part of America. And so we've now gotten to a point, you know, Casualties of War, which is specific. We no longer need the, although we're grateful for them, the, you know, Oliver Stone's Platoon overview. We can now deal with specificity, and I think that it's clear from the conversations I've had with people who have been touched by the war that it is something that will never heal. It is something that they need to come at from every possible angle that they can, again and again and again and again. Because for me, growing up in Canada, I was, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. It was a scary television show. It was a television show that I didn't want to watch.
But also, Michael, your sensibility is Canadian.
Mm.
I'm not minimizing the actor preparing, but when I think of you, almost 6 months of your life in the jungles of Thailand, you talk about the physical exhaustion from the heat, which on most days was over 100. The emotional exhaustion of the material, which is devastating and filled with sorrow. Mm-hmm. What propelled you every day, beyond the image you described of seeing Brian De Palma pull up in his car, thinking, oh, thank God he's here, he'll tell us what to do?
Yeah, that was boy, Field Marshal Brian.
How did you keep going on the bad days?
You know, there are a lot of, you know, once you commit to a piece of material, you're in it all the way, and especially when you get on a plane and you fly for 18 hours and there you are, and you have to cling very, you know, fast to what brought you there in the first place, and you've done all that thinking ahead of time. I've done all the thinking about you know, you could even go so deep as to say, because I am not now, nor will I ever be a soldier in a combat situation. And because guys younger than me died in that situation, and because as an actor it's my nature to try and explore that, and so I want to do that, and it's also tinged with guilt. I mean, there are all kinds of feelings. You work all that out before, and then you get there and you just go through it, because the physical exhaustion and the emotional exhaustion of dealing with this on a day-to-day, you know, work basis is enough. overall an overall agenda of trying to make a point or trying to, you know, clear up something in your own mind is something that is done before and after the work.
But you know what I wonder about with you? When you say, as you did, that Brian De Palma sent you the script for Casualties of War, you read it. You read your character, Erickson. And you said, it troubled me, it was disturbing, and I saw that there was no way I could possibly do it. What was the turning point when you said, oh yes, there is a way I can do it, however disturbing, however troubling, I'm an actor first?
Yeah, well, that's essentially it. That's what happens. I'm you know, I'm in this unique situation because I'm always reminded that there's a perception of me, and it's interesting because I never think of it, but I'm constantly reminded of it. But my basic modus operandi is to find material that is going to be interesting to do, and that ultimately will be a work that's worth something, and it isn't until after, you know, that after I'd read the script, I'd read it again, just the way when I saw the film I had to see it once and then see it again. I did that, and then Tracy read it because I wanted to see what
Your
a woman's
wife.
point of view, my wife at that time, my fiance, I wanted to see what a woman's perspective was, whether it was offensive in any way, or whether it was just something, or whether there's something that was missed or something that was not touched upon. Or anyway, she was devastated by it. I talked to Brian about, although I didn't believe this, but you know, there's so much talk with Brian about his misogynistic side and his, you know, titillation from sexual crimes, and you know, making, you know, evoking titillation from sexual crimes, and you know, pandering and that kind of thing. And I, in my conversation with him, it was very clear that he understood the responsibility of dealing with the horror of this rape, and that I was also concerned that in some way the cards would be, you know, the decks would be stacked to make you feel that there was an environmental alibi for these people, or you know, an alibi out of circumstance, that it's basically forgivable what they did because of they were these poor guys in this situation, and it was clear that that was not his point of view. That basically we're going to deal with this stuff. Let's be responsible, and let's do it in a way that is worthy of what's at stake. And what I didn't understand, even knowing Brian, until I started to do it, was that, you know, what I saw as a little morality play, as a little conscience piece, very intense, but very, you know, very emotional, very tight. He made into this epic film,
You know, that
which is so
perception of you,
fabulous.
that perception of you, I think is a great piece of movie making. Almost didn't get Casualties of War made, because when it was at Paramount, the perception was Michael J. Fox has an image and a youthfulness from television and film that will not work in this movie.
Paramount's been buying me dinners ever since.
Well, there you go. You see, with a quote like that, you're set for life at Morton's.
It's
the Ivy at the Shore.
I tend to, you know, I wouldn't fly in the face of that just for the fun of it. But certainly when you're backed with material and talent such as Brian's, David Rabe's, Sean Penn's, and my own, what it means to me, then it's fun. Then it's fun to go, you really think that? You know, great. Okay, well, let's go do it. Because it's not for effect. You know, I don't work for effect. I don't do it for effect. I mean, the things about, you know, what you get paid and, you know, whether people are going to like it, those are really apart from being there and doing it. You know, I'd said before I even went, you know, someone was talking about, you know, critics or something, and I said, you know, Bright Lights, Big City was going to open when I was going to be in Thailand, and they said, well, what do you expect from the critics? And I said, you know, I'm going to be up to my neck in malarial like slime with Sean Penn and Brian De Palma screaming at me. The last thing I really give about is like, you know, does David Hansen like me? You know, it's just not there, and I don't feel that way, and I feel so fortunate to have opportunities, and to know that if 10 movies down the road they pull the plug on me and say that was it, I didn't do 10 Secret of My Successes in a row. I didn't do 10 Back to the Futures in a row. I mixed it up a bit because it's my responsibility. You can't. If I really want to look myself in the eye and say you're an actor, as opposed to saying, well, you're a comedian, you're a shtick man, you're a whatever you are, if I really want to feel that I gave a shot at being an actor, I have to challenge myself and I have to do as many different things as I can. Other people's perceptions be damned.
Let me just remind you that after what you described as 6 months of hell in the jungles of Thailand, you've done the finest piece of work on film you've done so far in your life. And I compliment you on Casualties of War.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you very much. Well, it would certainly be tough to go through that and look back at it now and go, God, we screwed it up. I love that that people don't, that you could show this, Brian's reaction when he screens the movie, usually, and people see it, then he walks down and goes, okay, let's party, let's go eat, because everybody is a wreck. The first time that I saw it, I sat and watched it, and then it was over, and people came up to me, and I was still sitting there, and they said, what did you think? And I said, I don't know, and then they got worried and said, well, Michael, you were fine in it, this, that, and the other, and I said, and I had to watch it again a couple days later, and then I called up Brian, and that was the first time I called up Brian and said, this is amazing, and I did the same with Sean. But I for one of the few times in my life I lost myself up there. That's not in any way giving myself credit for a performance, but just that what it was about just blew me away.
Thank you.
You're
I've enjoyed
welcome.
being with you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Pleasure.
I've always wanted to talk to you.
We'll do it again.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.